What's up, family? This is your man, not boy, Go Black to Africa. I want to go ahead and do this video because I've traveled the world. I lived in 4 Muslim states. I have been to over 10 Muslim countries. And there's this misconception, there's this notion that Arabs or Muslims have not done atrocities across the globe, or Africa really, to be exact. But I want to share a video with you all who many might know of Shahid Bolson, a man who speaks eloquent, a man who actually knows his history, and will share with you his opinion of how Western world, or the Europeans, or white folk, have done a horrific job creating civilizations around the world and yet leaving these nations or cultures in disarray. Check out his video, and I got a comment just to let you know all what he's saying in luring us as African American into his pool of rants so that we can just join aboard without thinking that the Muslims had a huge play in the enslavement of our people. I'll be back.
I also saw someone saying on the same video that I'm just bitter. How astute of you. Of course I'm bitter. I'm a Westerner. That means that I was taught a fictitious story my whole childhood about the West. And I didn't actually get any sort of decent education until I was an adult. And it wasn't provided to me. I had to search it out. I had to find it out. It was hidden from me. And what I found out was that I actually come from a civilization that never civilized. I came from a so-called civilization that is identical to abject primitivity. I came from a so-called civilization that's what you would expect from people who were raised by wolves. It's like your culture was dropped on its head as a baby. You know, the brain of this so-called civilization has a deformed amygdala. The prefrontal cortex of the Western mind is missing. It's like a psychopath. So yes, I learned that I came from a so-called civilization, a so-called culture that completely failed to develop. You know, we're like the moronic bully in school who pushes people around as a kid, never pays attention, never learns, never studies, and never changes. So that everyone else, everyone that he bullied, eventually surpasses him in adulthood, in every conceivable way, in maturity, in skills, in knowledge, in intelligence, in career, in health, in relationships, in everything. While he remains a stunted man-child who nobody can stand, no one wants to be around. Well, that's the West. Every Westerner has been deprived by their ancestors of a history that they can be proud of, a history that gives them a chronological record of their development, their advancement as a people. Because the West is just as primitive, just as barbaric, just as shallow, just as selfish, petty, deceitful, and immature as they were 3,000 years ago. So I say West because I mean the West. You can't divorce imperialism from the so-called civilization that imperialism emerged from. This isn't even just about the endless crimes of the West against the rest of the world. No, I'm talking about the whole so-called culture, the so-called civilization that has utterly and miserably failed its own people. You know, you literally had to suppress everyone else, oppress everyone else, burn, loot, and destroy everything that everyone else had, everything that they built, that everyone else built, everything that they accomplished, just so you could try to make your so-called civilization look developed, only by de-developing everyone else. You had to tie their hands and feet just to pretend that you could beat them in a race. And again, it's just like some dumb bully in school who cheats on his test, cheats on his homework. Okay, you'll get an A on the test, but you're still dumb. And you won't progress educationally at all. That's not going to benefit you. Your appearance of knowledge on a test you cheated on is short-lived. Whereas you can lock the smart kid in the gym locker, but he's still the smart kid. I mean, imagine, you go all around the world and smash up everything that other civilizations built, loot what they built, pillage, steal, even steal their ideas and their concepts and their philosophies. And then you sit on top of this mountain of stolen goods and declare yourself to be rich because of your own merit. And imagine telling this lie to your children, to your own children, to your grandchildren, generation after generation, how do you think that's going to go? You didn't invest in creating actual merit. You cheated, you lied, you stole, you brutalized, and then you tell your own people that everyone else in the world has nothing and you have everything because of how much better you are than everyone else. How long is that lie sustainable? I mean, these are people who actually have civilizations, who actually created and built and accomplished and didn't just pillage and plunder. And there's still those people today, even though you have oppressed them, they're still those same people. And you're still the way you are. Wallahi, the West let its people down. The West let their own people down. I mean, a good example actually is African Americans. I don't know if you can think of a people who were more held back, more deprived, more sabotaged than African Americans. You took everything away from them and took them away from everything. They started in your country at less than zero, literally regarded and treated as subhuman, not allowed to learn to read or write or anything for hundreds of years. But you see, they come from a people of accomplishment to one degree or another, not a people of piracy and theft and appropriation. They come from a people who created and built and developed in their own countries, in their own land. And even though you did everything that you could possibly do to suppress them, to hold them down, to hold them back, and you're still doing that until today, nevertheless, I don't think anyone can dispute the fact that African Americans have become a global cultural superpower. Culturally, they're a superpower. Whatever cultural soft power that America has in the global South, it's African American. And people like this, with a history like this, with a legacy like this, simply cannot be held back for any length of time by a people who do not have a similar history, people who have never actually invested in their own civilizational development. And that's the West. You're going to get left behind. You're going to get surpassed, and you are going to end up being nothing more than a footnote in history.
What do you think? You know, sounds good, and he tells some truth about how African Americans have overachieved, have done and contributed to the many Europeans and Western world's America's societies. But let's go down memory lane. Isn't it the Muslims who started around the 5th century and enslaved a multitude of Africans? Isn't it the Muslims who were the last ones to abolish slavery in 1981 when the world was saying that they must end slavery? Isn't it the Muslims who, when they were trying to expand Islam, that they came across the northern Africa, taking over Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and further spreading down to the south? Many of us know Mansa Musa, you know, the Mali Empire. He was a Muslim. He converted. You know, at that time, you know, it was you either convert to Islam or you die by the sword. Now, I know many Muslims disagree with that, but history shows what man will allow another man to come into his city, into his region, and let him take over and bring in his so-called religious beliefs. This is not what actually goes on. So to Mr. Shahid, who believes that the Europeans have done atrocities, we know the Sahara slave trade, or the Arab Sahara slave trade, came in from the northern and swooped down through to the east of Africa and took millions of Africans into slavery. They have taken them over to the far as China, to India, to other Arab countries to enslave them. Not to mention that Mecca was the #1 selling post of African slaves. Very interesting. Now, I understand that one would be frustrated when your people has a knee on your neck and you can't do nothing about America, who has been bullying you. Yes, you stand aside and you just take it. But what if the shoes was on the other foot? If Muslims controlled the world, how would it be? Now, I've said I've lived in for Muslim states. And I see that many Muslims today are not the same following the beliefs that were back in the 80s when I were there and the 90s when I were there than how it is today. We know there are many who are wanting to walk away from Islam. We know there are others who are wanting to flee to other countries. But in saying that, we do know that the atrocities that the Muslims have caused the Africans that exist to this day in Libya, enslaving Africans trying to flee to the north, that it is a shame, and how or what an audacity for one to point fingers at another nation of people as though that they are the worst and ignore the very violence that you have caused against the people.